everyone, and welcome to episode 129 of the Dear Herbalist podcast titled Counting the Cost, the Risk and Responsibilities of Being an Herbalist. If you are new here, you are most certainly welcome. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much as always for your continued listen. I definitely appreciate it. Like I told you guys before, I definitely read all of the comments that you post, and I appreciate your feedback on what you think of the podcast, how it's helped you in some way. I want to make sure that I tell you guys that I appreciate you listening. And when I say that, thanks for tuning in. I truly, truly mean it. So thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the season of get everything together. So your girl has been running like a chicken with her head cut off. Okay. Running, trying to get these kids in order, trying to get my home in order. But you know, this is such is life, right? Such is life. So I was recently in the hospital visiting someone that is very dearest to my heart. And I was talking to his grandchildren about his health and some things that he can do and these type of things. And one of the grandchildren, they were like, oh, you know, you're an herbalist. And then he started going down the list of, you know, herbalists who have been targeted, herbalists who have gotten in trouble, you know. So we kind of went down that little rabbit hole and that type of thing. And as I was driving away from the hospital, I was really thinking about, you know, the risk. And it truly is a risk. And I was thinking about the hospital staff, and I was thinking about this particular individual and his health care and the long laundry list of things that they were requiring of him. And, you know, so I was just driving home, and I was really going through all of that in my mind. And I was thinking about what his grandson had said about the risk and about herbalists who have been targeted. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to make that my podcast topic for Thursday, because I feel like it's something that is very important that we as herbalists understand. Now, I must say, okay, I'm not saying everything I'm getting ready to say to you to put fear in you, because you don't want to operate out of fear. The best thing that you can do, first and foremost, is cover yourself in prayer as an herbalist. I will say that because anytime you decide to do anything that is of good, something that will help the greater good of people and greater good of man, you will be targeted. And there are secret spiritual forces, right? They're really not hidden. We know who they are. And then there are natural and human people that could target you as an herbalist. And so we have to cover ourselves spiritually, but as well as naturally. And so tonight I'm going to talk about those natural things that I feel like we need to understand as herbalists and really count up the cost. And this, again, is not saying count up the cost so you can run and be like, you know what? Yeah, I don't think I want to get into it that deep. Or, you know what? I don't think I want to do it at all. I'm just going to do, you know, at home if my kids need something, my spouse needs something, but I'm not going to get that serious. And you don't have to. Okay. But for those that feel like they have a calling to this, and those that feel like, you know, I am to do something for the greater good of mankind on a larger scale, I'm speaking to you. Okay. Even if you don't want to do it on a large scale, let's just say that you want to own your own wellness business, or let's say that you want to start a community center, or let's say you want to do, in the medical world, they call it telehealth, but an alternative to that, right? Or something different from that. But the premise is that you have clients online that you see, that you speak to, you make an assessment of their situation, and you give them some remedies and things to address their medical conditions or their conditions, period, right? So I'm speaking to all of you and anyone that is interested in coming over to the side of herbal medicine, having a clear understanding of what all this is, what the risks are, what our responsibilities are, so that you don't get jammed up, you know, and get yourself a legal case. So today we're going to talk about something that doesn't often get mentioned nearly enough in the herbal world, and that is the cost of being an herbalist. So when I say cost, I don't just mean the price of classes and tinctures and your textbooks and online courses, whatever products you may buy, but I mean the real cost, okay? The risk, the responsibilities, the mistakes that can change the course of your herbal business if you're not careful. So tonight is going to be a very serious conversation because the truth is some herbalists have been sued and some have been targeted. And many, unfortunately, have lost their businesses, lost their reputation, and their ability to do herbal medicine because they didn't fully count up the cost before they stepped out into this work. So tonight, we are going to break down some of those mistakes, what we can learn from them, and how you can protect yourself so that the work that you do and the legacy that you are trying to leave and the legacy of herbal medicine itself can remain strong. So let's look at the hidden cost. Okay. When you choose a path of herbalism, you're not just choosing plants, you're choosing people. And with people comes responsibility. So there's obvious investment. That means years of study, hands-on training, constant continuing education, which you definitely should be doing as an herbalist. There's the financial piece of it. So you're buying supplies, clinical space, marketing, liability insurance. I mean, there's a lot of cost that goes with that. But then there's the cost that I talked about before that often gets overlooked, and that is the legal landscape. Every herbalist should know that practicing medicine without a license is a real charge that people in our field have faced. Sometimes it's not because we're reckless, okay, but because they didn't understand where the boundaries lie. So let's look at some of the mistakes of others. Now, I have changed out some of the names to protect the cases and the people. Okay, I'm not about that life, just busting people out and all that kind of stuff. But I pulled a few. So let's look at some of the mistakes that herbalists have made. And let's be honest here. Okay, there are herbalists who have lost everything because of simple, avoidable mistakes. One of the things that I read in this legal book that I was reading is that pride and arrogance and haughtiness, these things are often, at the end of a legal case. Meaning that if you are someone, I know it all, do this because of me, I healed you, I know everything, you know nothing, this type of attitude, usually this is where mistakes happen. Usually this is where things get overlooked. Okay. So it can be avoided if you always remain humble, always remain educated, and don't operate outside of your scope of practice or business or understanding. So let's look at Melissa. That's what we will call her. She is a brilliant herbalist who ran a community clinic in the Midwest area. And her heart was in the right place. She wanted to make herbs accessible to people who couldn't afford conventional health care. But in her verbiage, her language on her products and things like that, she would often use language like, this formula will treat your diabetes, or this will cure your arthritis. And these words, treat and cure, is what landed her in court with a charge of practicing medicine without a license. So eventually her clinic got shut down. And even though her intentions were pure, she couldn't continue on with her work. And of course, it devastated her community. Now, in a podcast, several podcasts back, we talk about red zone words. And I had someone comment on, bless her heart, comment on that particular podcast. And she said, I don't care what you say. I use the words cure, I use treat, I use diagnose, and I'm going to continue to use it. I've used it for years, yada, 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 yada. So my response to her, okay, now and forever and beyond is fine. But I said what I said. And if you're not careful, you can be charged with practicing medicine without a license. Why? Because in another podcast, I talked about language. Okay. In herbal medicine, we have our own language. We have our own way that we look at dis-ease and disorder. We have our own way that we make our assessments of what we're looking at, and then we have our own way of utilizing the plants to address that. So we have to use our language. Okay? If we start dipping over into the medical community, in their language book, and start using their language, which they have the hold on the words treat, cure, diagnose. Okay? Those are their words. So if you're using their language, then they're like, hey, you're trying to be one of us. You're trying to identify with one of us. Okay. And because of that, it's all in your verbiage, in your handouts, in your pamphlets, how you talk to people. It's in your promotional materials. Everywhere you're using our language. But wait, you're not one of us. Right? So if you're using our language, we're assuming that you are one of us. And if you are one of us, then that means you have the proper stamp. That means you have the proper credentials. So we're going to look at you even further, because the thing of it is that herbal medicine is effective. So now you're starting to steal our clients. You become competition to us. So now we have to look at you a little closer. But wait, you sound like us. You wear a white coat like us. You have a clinic similar to ours. But you don't have our credentials. And you're taking our clients. And your clients, our clients that we now share are getting better, and they're no longer listening to us. Okay, you got to be sued. Right? So you do not use their language. And if you have any questions about, well, what is their language? Just listen, pay attention. Okay? Don't call yourself a doctor. Don't put doctor nowhere in your name. Don't use their words. Don't use cure. Don't use treat. Don't use diagnose. Don't use any of those words. Don't use their terms. And that is something that I had to be careful with in the very beginning. And even sometime now I have to catch myself. Make sure you're not using their terms. So you don't want to say diabetes. You don't want to say arthritis. From an herbalist perspective, you want to talk about the mechanisms that are dysfunctional. And that is what causes those things. Okay? Use the methods that are dysfunctional. So if you have a package, and let's say you are trying to address arthritis, okay? Then you can say, listen, this particular oil or salve, it helps reduce heat and inflammation in the body. Okay? But you don't want to put on your package, this will cure arthritis. Okay? And we don't say cure. We say address. We don't say diagnose. We say assessment or assess. Now, lady, the one that put that comment on my Red Zone Words podcast, if you want to use that, by all means. But you can't say that you haven't been warned. Okay? No matter what you do. And I know in different countries it's different, but I can only speak from the perspective of where I live in the United States. And herbal medicine in the United States, even though it's widely used, it's not as championed as it is or it may be in other countries. And I notice in other countries, sometimes the doctors and the herbalists work together. That doesn't happen here. So you have to be careful and make sure that you are not using the language of the medical doctors. If you are, you need to stop. Change all of your marketing materials, change all your pamphlets. Okay? If you have a clinic, change how it looks. Make it not look so much like a hospital. We're out in nature. Make it look nature-y. Okay? All right? Be careful. Let's look at another case. David. Now, David ran a thriving online apothecary, and his formulas were beautifully crafted. People loved his work, but he did not carry liability insurance. So one day, a customer had a severe allergic reaction and ended up in the hospital. Even though the reaction may not have been his fault, he was personally sued. And without insurance, he had no safety net, and his apothecary went under almost overnight. All right? That's kind of self-explanatory. Another one is there's a lady named Renee, we'll call her. She had a private practice where she met with clients and gave one-on-one herbal support. Her downfall wasn't her products or her consultations because, she was on point, but it was with her paperwork. She never kept intake forms or session notes, and we'll talk about that later on down the line. But she never kept those things. And when a client later complained that she had diagnosed them and caused harm, she had no documentation to protect herself. She couldn't prove what she did or didn't even say. So in that case, she didn't have her paperwork together. And my background from way back in the way back is social work. And if I don't do nothing else, I know documentation. You have to do it. I don't care if they're the sweetest, kindest, most wonderful. They go to your church. They pet puppies. They I don't care how nice and kind and Mother Teresa I'm making up words today. Mother Teresa they sound. Document everything. Because again, like I said before, you are dealing with people. And people are flawed human beings, flawed individuals. And we didn't even get to those people that may be sent to you. Okay, because there have been herbalists with businesses that have said they have had people being sent to them to see what they are doing, to see how they are doing it, to see how they could jam them up. So you have to be on your P's and Q's. You have to have all your I's dotted, all your T's crossed, even have someone look over your paperwork, your consultation paperwork, your legal verbiage paperwork, all of this stuff. So that when people look at your stuff, they're like, dang, I don't know how we can take her down. She got everything lined up correctly. She's not using medical language. You can't sue her for that. She does have the FDA verbiage on her products. Can't get her for that. I don't know. I mean, we looked at everything. We can't get her or him for nothing. Okay. And understand all of these stories that I'm giving you, these aren't scare tactics. Okay. Please, again, don't allow fear to set into your heart. These are cautionary tales. They show us what happens when herbalists don't count up the cost of their work. Sometimes we can get so passionate. And I say we, meaning all of us. We get so passionate about what to do. We've read it. We've done the research. We've done the homework. We've seen the impacts that herbs have on people's lives. Not only other people, but our own lives, our families. We get so excited and overzealous. We want to just tell everybody and do whatever. We get mad at the medical community because of the time they've wasted, the money they've wasted, the lies they've told. We just get on our sister soldier out here. And I get it. And that's why I say we and not y'all. I totally 100% get it. But where we fall short and where I see a lot of these herbalists and these cases and things like that is that even if you are targeted, okay, even if you are targeted, why not make sure that they don't have nothing on you? They're going to have to make something up. And even then, that won't hold up in court. But if you are being targeted, don't give them a reason. Okay, somebody comes into your office and they're like, listen, I'm on this particular medication. Do you think I should just throw my whole medication away, get rid of it completely, and then just start taking this herb? And then they're looking at you intently in your eyes and you're just on your, advocacy and yeah, you go ahead on and do that. Matter of fact, stop it right now. Right? And then they cut a little smirk on their face. In their mind, they're like, got him. Got her. Because you didn't say, no, I don't recommend you immediately stop. Okay? But let's provide some education on this particular medicine, right? And let's provide education on plant medicine and how it can help you. Now, in herbal formulation, okay, which is the route I'm headed in terms of education and things like that, it would be good to understand what herbs that you can recommend, okay, that will get the job done and that will provide the least harm to the client while they work to cut down on the medicine that they have. And eventually, when they start seeing the effects, they themselves will make the decision, because they have the autonomy to do that, to say, I will not take this medication anymore. Now, I know that statement that I just made, some ancient herbalists are like clutching their pearls, but you got to understand the times you're living in. I'm not saying promote pharmaceutical medication. That is not what I'm saying. Do not soundbite this, clip this, none of that. I'm not saying none of that. Do not promote it. But unless you want to end up in jail because you told someone immediately stop your medication right now. Take this herb. Okay? And keep it moving. And let's be realistic. A lot of herbalists out there have not really studied thoroughly herbal formulation. Okay? You know the basics. Most people know a lot of the basics, right? The energetics. They know, what the herb can do, the herbal actions, herbal affinities, these type of things. But a lot of them haven't dug deep enough to understand, even on a phytochemical level, to be able to really truly understand what this plant is capable of and how it's going to interact with the medications that they're already using. Because we don't study the medications. But I think we do need to understand what type of medications our clients are using so that we can have that understanding in herbal formulation. And that's what I'm here for, to help you understand that. Okay? To help you understand all of that. So, how can you protect yourself and your business? What does protection look like? Let's get practical, okay? First of all, get your pens, notebooks, papers, back of a receipt. Write this stuff down because it's going to help you, okay? It's going to help you. The new year will be coming here pretty soon. Kick it off right. Go ahead and take this fall, like I already talked about seasons in the last podcast. Go ahead and take this fall to kind of shut things down a little bit, assess, make some assessments, move out products that don't work, switch up your labels on things. If you don't have your FDA stuff on there, you need to get it on there. Get rid of those red zone words that I talked about in the previous podcast, okay? Switch up the language, the verbiage, rebrand if you need to, okay? But take this fall, take this time to really sit down and make some assessments on where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do. How can I protect myself on this road that I'm trying to go? All right. So let me give you some tips. Number one, know the law where you live. Now, regulations do vary from state to state, country to country. So if you don't know what you're allowed to do, then you're putting yourself at risk. So know exactly what you're allowed to do and create a file folder for yourself. Okay. In case the internet shuts down, the grid goes down, whatever may happen, you have a file folder of laws and legalities. What can I do as an herbalist? What are my limitations? And work within those. Number two, use safe language. Okay? Instead of saying this herb will treat your high blood pressure, say this herb may support your cardiovascular balance. Okay. And the thing is, you may say, well, the client ain't gonna understand that. They're gonna be like, well, I got high blood pressure. Then talk about the mechanisms that causes their blood pressure to be high. Do not talk about the term high blood pressure. Okay. Instead of saying this cures anxiety, try to say this herb is traditionally used to promote calmness. Okay. To address anxiousness, these type of things. Language matters, and it's often the difference between protection and prosecution. Third, have disclaimers everywhere. Have disclaimers on your website, your product labels, your intake forms. Just a simple line. I am not a medical doctor, and this information is for educational purposes only. It goes a long way to protect yourself. Okay? Again, a simple line. I am not a medical doctor. This information is for educational and informational purposes only. Number 4, get liability insurance. It's not optional. It's protection for you, it's protection for your clients, and for the integrity of your business. And then 5, stay in your lane. Okay? You are an herbalist. You are not a physician. All right? Now, you can collaborate with other healthcare providers when it's necessary, but don't try to replace them. And what I mean by that is not who we are. We don't do the things that they do. We don't have the mindset and the methods and all of that they have. We are herbalists. We have a unique understanding of how plants work, the natural way, with little to no side effects. So we have a gift. So we don't have to walk around and act like we're subservient to anyone. So that is their lane. So stay in your lane. Okay? Herbalists, we have our lane. We have our route. We have our conversation. We have our language. We aren't physicians. We haven't gone to medical school. And when people say that, it's almost like, well, you're trying to say we're not worthy. No. What I'm saying is you haven't gone to medical school. So you don't know their methodologies in terms of how they do things, right? What you should know, obviously, that they do know is about the human body, how it works, biology, chemistry, that type, biochemistry, these type of things. Yes, you should know. Okay. But as far as a title of physician and a sitting down for a test and a license, we are not that. And we don't want the headache of any of that either. Because trust me, it's a headache. I don't know if you guys have been noticing, there's a lot of physicians that are like, you know what? Adios. I'm ditching this side and I'm going to the natural side. Okay. Because they know and they understand what it is. So we are herbalists. Stay in your lane. And even if you do collaborate with healthcare providers, it's an understanding that this is the philosophy. And the goal is not to have these people on medications for the rest of their life, to give them a good quality of life. All right. And then my last bit of advice to each of you is document everything. Keep notes, keep records. Even if a question comes up, you will want a paper trail showing that you acted responsibly and within your scope. Okay? Is somebody coming in? And usually when you're making your assessments, and we'll have this conversation later as well, when you're making your assessments on people, it's not just about asking questions as far as their health. You're really also making assessments. Is this person going to be a good fit for you as an herbalist? Are you going to be able to help them? Are they going to stay on course? Are they ready to accept the help that you're going to provide? Do they understand that you're a facilitator of the healing process? You're not a healer. Do they understand that? Okay. These are the things that you look for in these initial consultations with people, because you want to make sure, if something goes left, you look like you're the type of person that will blame me for it because you're not listening to what I say. And if you don't listen to what I say, okay, and I'm not saying from a dictatorship type of thing, but I'm talking about these are the recommendations that I'm making. If I give you a certain pill to take, or if I give you a certain salve, or if I give you a tincture, these type of things, and I tell you this is how much you take, this is how often you take. Now, you don't have to take it, but if you want to, do it correctly. And you seem like the type of person that you ain't gonna listen. You're gonna do what you want to do. You probably gonna mix a couple of things together, get hurt, and then come back and try to blame me. And unfortunately, everybody and anybody that you help that sits in front of you, you really have to think of it that way. Again, I don't care if it is, somebody that's super sweet and kind and whatever. Document everything. Keep a file on every client that you have, and keep it secure, right? Keep their information safe, but document it. Document every phone call. If they talk to you, what did they talk about? What were their questions? If you had to say, hey, I didn't tell you to do, 40 drops 5 times a day. I only told you to do 20 drops 2 times a day, and they decided to do different. Document that and write their why. Why did they say they did that? Was it because they didn't know? Was it because they were like, listen, it wasn't working fast enough. I had to hurry up and just go do some extra stuff so it could work faster. And they end up hurting themselves. Document that. Document. And that's the stuff that's a headache that most people don't even want to deal with. But if you want to continue on with this work that we are doing, and if you want to even go greater, like I said, you want to do a clinic, you want to do a hospital, or you want to, branch out and do all kinds of things where you're affecting the masses, you have to keep yourself in order. Get the right insurance. Get your legal stuff together. Get everything together. That way, when you step out, you are as protected as you can be. But don't go out there guns a-blazing and you ain't got nothing. No protection. and neither two nickels to rub together either. you know. So here's the truth. Here's the bottom line. Herbalism is powerful, okay? But with power comes responsibility. And even us herbalists sometimes don't even realize how powerful these herbs are. This is the reason why, the World Health Organization says that over 80-90% of the people are using herbs for their health care. Okay? Because they do work, because they are powerful, because they can do some great things in the body. And it was by design. But with that comes responsibility. Because you hold that knowledge, it comes responsibility. So if you ignore the risks, then the cost to you can be devastating to your business, to your reputation, and even your livelihood. But if you acknowledge those risks and prepare for them, then that cost becomes freedom. Freedom to practice with confidence, freedom to serve your community without fear, freedom to let the plants do what they're supposed to do and work through you without the shadow of any type of legal or financial risk hanging over your head. So counting the cost isn't about being afraid. It's about being wise. It's about understanding that the gift that we carry as herbalists is way too important to jeopardize through carelessness. So I'm going to leave you with this. Have you counted the cost of your business? Are you protecting yourself as much as you protect your clients? Because herbalism is not just about knowledge of plants. It's about accountability, integrity, and professionalism. And when you take those seriously, you not only safeguard your own path, but you strengthen the reputation of herbalism as a whole. So thank you for joining me this evening. If this episode has resonated with you, share it with another herbalist who might need to hear it. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my social media sites at The Demystified Herbalist. I know some people have reached out to me about my website. Trust me, it's coming. It has been a work of love and of passion and of time. This is a learning website that's coming, y'all. But if you want to get some products in the meantime, go to thedemystifiedherbalist.square.site. I have training manuals on there. I have, if you're trying to formulate products, formulate things for your clients, there's manuals and books on there. Of course, there's herbal teas, oils, products. Go out there and get you some. And as always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving with wisdom. And until next time, family, I'm out.